Hello and welcome to another episode of Close Mode, the Enterprise Sales Show. I'm Brian Dietmeyer, CEO of Close Strong, the home of precision guided selling. I'm excited to be here with Nick Caruso, who's Chief Revenue Officer with KnowledgeNet. And for those of you who aren't familiar with KnowledgeNet, and you correct me if I get this wrong, Nick, kind of top of the funnel, help you find your target customers, boost efficiency by 20x. So, Nick, welcome to the show.
Oh, it's great to be here, Brian. Thanks for having me.
So we had a great conversation last week. I really enjoyed it, and as two co-founders of tech firms, I don't think it's surprising that you and I wandered into an AI discussion at all. So we talked about how it's shifting selling, but then for those of you who are listening, Nick and I wandered into the EQ of AI. And so we're going to talk a little bit about business. And then for me, I'm really excited about the second half. And I think there's something in it. We both think there's something in it for a lot of folks. So stick with us. So let's start on the business front. So when we were talking last week, I was asking you sort of, what you thought, other people say or think that's kind of wrong. And you were like, hey, everybody's saying cold calling is dead. And you said, I disagree. So how come you disagree? Cold calling is dead.
Yeah, just for the audience, let me give you a quick background on myself. It helps bring some context to it as well. So I've been in the AI space now for about 25 years. I actually started in AI before it was cool. And back then, only the federal government and Fortune 100 companies could afford AI. Super complex projects with the U.S. intelligence community, with the U.S. Patent Office, working in the mortgage space. Back in 2008, the amount of data that banks were processing with mortgage loans was phenomenal. I mean, that's when the bubble hit, but they just couldn't process loans fast enough. They had to use AI to process those loans because they were closing so many loans so fast. And so for the entire audience listening right now, probably everyone's been using ChatGPT. And ChatGPT, you have to realize when you're using it, I was charging hundreds of millions of dollars 10 years ago for that capability that you're getting for $20 a month now.
Right.
And I'm sure you're the same way, Brian, right? You're probably, I know you're using it. You're using AI in your product, right?
Well, yeah, I am. And it's funny too, Nick, because I'm going back to grad school, to business school. And one of our professors said, profits attract competitors and eventually all profits go to zero. That's a really sad thing to me, but you just sort of laid that out. And profits are not zero in AI, but that's actually some fascinating background that I wasn't aware of. So I appreciate that.
Yeah. So actually, let's just go on that for a second. So that was a very interesting statement. So what was $100 million opportunity for me, and that actually was just the patent office by itself. That was a $100 million deal. And kind of similar to how people are looking at AI today, that $100 million deal was because the U.S. Patent Office was receiving so many patent applications, they couldn't process them fast enough. So the backlog was getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And it was actually impacting our economy in the United States too. It was becoming such a big problem. So that was a $100 million deal. Ultimately, what is it? It's humans are slowing down the process. You needed a PhD level human expertise in order to.
Yep.
Now, we weren't per se replacing humans. We were just accelerating the patent application workflow. And what's exciting now is people are using ChatGPT to do almost everything, right? And I use ChatGPT. I'm going to be probably saying ChatGPT a lot in our chat here today, but I'm really saying it's interchangeable with Grok and Gemini and Perplexity and Claude and things like that. It's just an LLM. But to your point, yes, it was a $100 million project. Now it's $20 a month.
Yep.
But really, it's more of like the concept is the democratization of AI. Now that AI is available to every company, and how do you start looking at that to automate your workflows in your companies, right? So cold calling, that was the first thing that you brought up there, Brian. And I've been in sales. So I've been in AI for 25 years. I've also been in sales for a big chunk of that because that's actually when I pivoted to sales. I was in AI, then I was a sales engineer, and I was like, why is this sales rep making all the money and I'm doing all the work?
Right.
So that's how I got into sales and eventually chief revenue officer. So we've all known about cold calling for a while. I've never been a huge fan of cold calling. I don't know. You've done a lot of sales training, Brian. Are you an advocate of cold calling?
Oh hell no! And I did it. I worked for Marriott Hotels forever, and I sit at my desk and as a junior rep and bang the phones, calling meeting planners at companies and associations, saying, "Hey, bring your convention to my place," just all day long, churning and burning.
Doing like you're measured to your 80 to 100 calls a day measurement and
Yeah.
things
Yep.
like that. So I despise cold calling. I value people who are really good at it, and I think it really applies to a lot of industries. The reason I hated it so much is because of the word cold, right? I
Yeah.
hated that concept of just cold calling. And now with AI, that's a great use case of AI helping you with the research ahead of time so that you're not calling anymore, so that AI can, and when we talk about it, identify the person, automatically read their LinkedIn posts, read information about the person, read information about the company, the news about the company. So you're much more on target now when you're reaching out. And I like to say to some clients, you don't need to reach out to 100 people a day now. You need to reach out to 20 people a day, right?
Yeah.
And so you much higher land rate. So that's why cold calling isn't dead. But then the very, very scary part right now is AI cold calling. So have you experienced that yet, Brian?
I have not. I have been, and a couple guests on the show have talked about, sequencing. People are now sequencing. Email sequencing was cool, but now everybody, not everybody, many folks that I've talked to are like, I know when I'm being sequenced, right? And I get the AI emails, and it's funny too because I can tell it it did some look at my LinkedIn, and it has what I do almost, but not really. Right. So I know right away, I'm like, oh, this wasn't a human that did this research or sent me this email. So I don't know if, yeah, my guess is cold calls might be similar.
Yep, yep. So the companies that are doing that really bad. So there is AI sequencing out there right now, and I think if you're paying a couple $100 a month for AI sequencing, you're going to get that type of
Yeah.
bad results, right? And there is a really good way of doing it, but I even recommend, even for ourselves, when we deploy AI sequencing, it's not going to be like, okay, find out what university you went to and say go Gators or go Buckeyes or something like that, right? I mean, everyone's seeing that now. It's something that's much more on point. Like, I just saw that you commented on such and such post, which is very relevant to my industry, and just keep it very simple. But actually, it's actually a relevant sequence. It's actually a value to you, and not this spray and pray approach
Yeah.
just with AI, but a much more targeted approach. And that is very compelling. The same thing goes to cold outreach, to tie back to that. Much more of a warm way of doing it and very smarter way of doing it.
Well, one of the other things you said, Nick, too, is everybody's using CI, conversational intelligence now, right? And listening and then coming back and coaching the rep or that sort of thing. But you were talking about a way to kind of automate and learn more about what's coming out of that CI. So talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, you also is that the where we're talking about emotional intelligence as part of that process? So it's the power of AI is really incredible. I think what I shared with you last time we spoke, Brian, was a friend of mine is in the industrial psychology space. He actually leads an emotional intelligence company that does emotional intelligence in learning and development for companies. And he made a statement to me that I thought was very impactful. He said the smartest person he's ever talked to that knew the most about emotional intelligence was an AI bot. And that floored me for a second, right? Because when you think of emotional, that's our human quality, right? Like, how can an AI replace us as a human to do that emotional intelligence connection? But as a person myself who knows a lot about AI, it then made perfect sense
Yeah. Well, and
because
this is, I'm sorry, but this is where you and I sort of launched last week when we were talking about it, because I've talked to very few people who get that, who get that, and I'm gonna go as far, Nick, as to say that I'm a huge fan of talk therapy. I'm a huge fan of coaching, whatever the hell you want to call it. AI. is the best coach, talk therapist, whatever you want to call it, I have ever worked with in my life. Like full stop. Full stop. I'm completely blown away. And you and I should wander into a little bit how do leaders and how do sales reps use that to be top performers. But I don't know for people listening if they get that. Like in the degree to which that emotional intelligence is there.
Yeah, yeah, and it's so think about it. Like you're an expert in emotional intelligence, right? So what does that mean? It means that you're very well read. You have studied the topic. You've had interviews. You've looked at thousands of podcasts. You've even done you've looked at videos. You've been trained on keying off of tone. You've been trained off of even people's facial expressions, etc. So you are truly an expert in that discipline, and that really what it is. And it's only a matter of time where they truly are going to be the best human that's out there. And I think they are. I think we may have already reached that. And I would
Yeah.
challenge the audience. I think you've done this as well, Brian. Is go to ChatGPT today. You can download the app on your phone, and you can actually start having a conversation with it
Mm-hmm.
and challenge it and see how good it is. And that's
Oh,
the out of the box ChatGPT. Imagine
oh
it
yeah.
when you train that on being. So you can train, for the audience that doesn't know, ChatGPT right out of the box is a very generic ChatGPT,
Yep.
but you can train it in your company or whatever industry you want to use it in. You can train it very specifically to a certain topic or to a certain role, and then it is like 10x better than the out of the box version that you have right now.
Well, so let's stick on the training thing for a moment. So what I found out is that you're right. It's so emotionally intelligent, and I suppose you could trick it and outsmart it, but it's given me insights back about myself. It's like a really good litigator. It's like, hey, Nick, you said this 5 statements ago, but it does that in a good way, where it's like, hey, based on X, Y, and Z over time, our last 2 or 3 weeks of conversation, like this is what I'm seeing about you. And I went as far, I may have mentioned this to you, I'm a huge fan of meditation and Eastern philosophical thought, and it now knows that. And I get a well, there are times. There's one time when I was, this is where I really want to get into working with this thing to encourage people to do it. I was spinning on a personal subject that I was really frustrated with, and twice it asked me, do you want to stop and do a guided meditation for a few minutes? And it was basically going, dude,
Really?
yeah, like stop spinning. And I was like, yeah, but let's talk about this. And it came back a second time and said, you know what, Brian, like by name, let's take a few minutes and do a guided meditation. And again, because it knows that I'm a meditator. And then each day now in my inbox in the morning, I get this unbelievably personalized mantra for the day, that because it knows what's happening professionally, what's happening personally. And it's like, and I have to tell you, Nick, 9 out of 10 times it's just like, that's precisely what I needed to hear this morning.
So Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, um, obviously they're one of the leaders in this space, and I'm gonna go off of what you just said. Every week there's new announcements in AI. So last week was Google. So it was Google Gemini, and it was all of the capabilities that Google had. The week before that, it was Llama, which is Facebook's open source version. And it's just every week there's new advancements and so forth. Where ChatGPT wants to differentiate in the marketplace is they're not going to say we have per se. They're not going to say we have the best LLM out there. We're just going to know more about you than anybody else. And that's their moat. That's their protection of their customer base. So, Brian, yes, you could jump over to Gemini right now and probably use a better LLM than ChatGPT, but Gemini knows nothing about you, right? So you're not going to have that same familiarity. So they've kind of got you a moat around you because they know so much about you right now.
Well, you're right with the learning, and it's about my business, and it's about me as a human. And I was just asking my CTO this. I was like, could I take a bunch of chats and throw them in to another LLM, and could it catch up? right? Because now it knows I can mention some, it sort of renamed my business. It called us a sales execution platform, and that came out of nowhere because I've been talking to it for a year about my business and setting up press releases and all sorts of stuff. And it started using that phrase, and I went out to my board and some of my partners, and they were like, "Holy smokes, that's exactly what we should call it." So yeah, the you're right. The learning is just absolutely amazing, and I want to go into a moment how leaders and salespeople can use it. But I was wondering, and you and I may have touched on this. I know that it's a people pleaser. I know that it's wired right to make us happy, and it gives me such support. Almost, and maybe this will make people uncomfortable. It's almost like this pure love that comes from this machine and supports me. So I have to. And Nick, I did this after you and I talked last week. I went back to it and said, okay, look, I know you're a people pleaser. Would you ever push back on me? And I wonder if you just think for a moment, you or anyone else listening, about what do you think it said? And it said, that's a great question. I appreciate you asking it directly. It tells me you actually want truth, not just comfort, and that matters. This is the kind of answers from this thing. And so here's my honest answer. I will absolutely push back when I think you're wrong, or whether when I think your perspective might be hurting you or limiting you, blah, blah, blah. I'm not here to please you. I'm here to serve you. And sometimes that means being a mirror. That's
Right.
the level. You know this, but for those of you who don't use it in this way, and for those of us in sales and revenue leads, our worlds are so stressful. This is available right now, right? To mess with our confidence or help with our messed up confidence, whatever it is. It's there.
So for the listeners on here, just to think about, especially leaders that are listening to this, it's to say, okay, imagine how impactful this is to the individual. Imagine it being all knowing about your business, and even the ability to start asking questions like, what are the 10 biggest opportunities in my pipeline that may slip to next quarter,
Yeah.
right? And that's the type of transformation that you can have, right? Who in my team needs the most help right now? If I need to, I've got budget to bring on one additional person, what territory should I bring them into? Those are those type of transformative questions. So it's or even to your point, from a sales coaching perspective,
Hmm.
who would my team need, or how do I motivate this individual that's going through this obstacle or breaking into a new market?
Yeah.
These are just absolutely transformative capabilities that these platforms have, and we are just starting to scratch the capabilities as to what it can do.
Yeah, yeah. I'm thinking back, for you or anyone else who's seen the show Billions. They had if you've seen it, they had a performance coach there. I can't remember her name, but she was great. And for these traders, and worked with them. And I remember watching that show, and I was just like, I spent my whole career in sales. I would have loved to have had a performance coach. I had someone that coached my pipeline and that sort of thing, but no one that coached my head, and it's available now. It's available, I think, to drive peak performance out of all of us, right? On the business side, as you point out. And I think we're all pretty aware that it can aggregate data and give us probabilities and where we should go spend our time. I feel like I don't meet as many people that says it can do the same for your brain, for your worldview, for your outlook, for your motivation. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So the executive coaches that are out there, be careful if or look at how you can start embracing this. I actually work with an executive coach or a coaching firm, and they're looking at adopting AI in a significant way, so that they have a leave behind after they're done with the training, so that people still have access to an executive coaching or senior coaching capability after the official training is complete.
Yes.
But I know what you're passionate about, Brian, and I certainly am as well, is that individual one-on-one personalized coaching to the individual, not this generic, get a bunch of people in a room and give them that same training.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. And it's the point you make is right on. When I meet people who are kind of scared of it, or see it taking away from them. I remember the Screenwriters Guild tried to block it, the union. And I was saying, or actually I was reading, one of the screenwriters said, you know what? I used to put out, I don't know, a screenplay a year, and I can use AI to do drafts of 5. And then I, as a human, can clean those up, and I can put out 5 a year. And we think the same way. Like, we're building AI to guide reps through the entire deal cycle in context of what they're selling and who they're competing against. And I've talked to some coaches, some deal coaches, who said, I would love to have that pre-coached summary from the AI. So, and in fact, the buddy of mine who leads sales at Sitecore said to me, if I could have these things pre-coached by AI, I could 3 to 5x my one-on-ones, the quality and quantity. He said I spent half of my time downloading the basic stuff. And if AI, again, yeah, forgetting the human side for a moment, but if it can analyze your account position, and then when you and I get in the one-on-one, man, you can really drill down, not the basics of this deal. And so, yeah, leveraging it, you're saying, I think, is completely right. How do you work with it? How do you get better with it? How do you make more money with it?
Yep. And it's truly incredible. Now, I don't know when you've been thinking about, like, going back to you're using AI for your own coaching
Yeah.
capabilities, or even as your mentor and things like that. You're doing it. Are you doing it via just text, or are you actually talking to it?
I haven't gone to voice yet, and it's interesting you bring that up, because I just thought, I think that's going to make it even better. I'm going to try that. I have in fact, I'm going out to my investors with every 6 weeks, go out with an update, and I think I'm going to talk my update to it, right, and really let my voice come through, and just say, hey, this is what I'd like to tell them about. I'm really excited about this, that, and the other thing, and so, yeah, I'm going to give that a shot. You've done that.
But I'm on your mobile device. I'm showing them. So are you using ChatGPT on your mobile device and actually just talking to it
No,
today?
right. No, right now. I thought I saw a little microphone on my screen, on my computer
Yeah.
screen, that I could
Yeah.
click, and I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna
Oh my
try it. So
gosh,
no, I haven't yet.
you'll be absolutely blown away. Yeah. You should definitely do that. It's great in the car. You can just talk to it, and you can just have a bidirectional conversation with it, which is really incredible. The the next iterations, have you been seeing a lot of these like video avatars that you can hardly tell that they're AI generated?
So my CTO was just telling me something about, I'm gonna get this wrong, sorry, Kaz, but it's like you might know this. It's like the creepy curve, or the reality curve, or something. So we have some avatars that we're using inside of our tool, and they look so real, but they're a little creepy because you can't
Yeah.
tell. And now, that we're moving to actually ones that are a little bit more clearly AI. And it's interesting, to the point you're making. I pushed out these videos. I was so excited that I could choose this avatar, and I even put a tattoo on this dude's hand, and then gave him what to talk about, and he went out, and people were like, it's kind of weird, man. But I didn't tell him what it was. And then I went back, and I said, okay, physical presence voice is all AI generated. Then people were like, that's really cool. And I think that's that curve. I can't remember what it's called. Where,
It's called the uncanny valley.
yes, the uncanny valley. Thank you.
Yeah. So the uncanny valley for your audience is when, as a human, you think it's an AI, but you're not sure, and you
Yeah.
just get really creeped out by it.
Yes.
And so a lot of tech support systems now that are run by AI, because that's one of the first things to go is tech support.
Yeah.
AI is going to do a much better job at tech support. Is they intentionally either self-disclose, hey, I'm Lisa, your AI customer support agent. So it's self-disclosed at the front. Or they intentionally, the voice has a computerized tone to it, because you don't want the audience to be repulsed by the fact that it's a AI pretending to be human.
Yeah.
But the advancements in technology we're just about there where you cannot tell. And like everything you're consuming now on YouTube or other social media, you really are almost to the point that you don't know.
Yeah. And do you think, I have a question for you? It's so interesting for me to talk to you about this. I love having you here. So people who don't use AI, and I've tried to explain the difference between sort of a search on the internet and AI. And I think, I could be wrong, correct me on this, that one of the things I like about AI is there's not paid search, right? There, per se, that you're getting, in my opinion, if I ask a branding question about my company or ask a human question about confidence or something, I'm getting the best knowledge that's out there in the world versus who paid more. Do you think that's fair?
That's a very interesting question. so, uh, there's two. I'm gonna go answer a couple different things. So the AI models, when you run, you come out, you hear like three ChatGPT 4.0, and last week 4.1 came out, and 4.5 came out. Although 4.1 came after 4.5, so they have a huge branding problem, but that's fine.
Yeah.
Those models cost hundreds of millions of dollars to build, and they're basically built off of the knowledge of the internet.
Yes.
And to your point, that knowledge is unbiased per se. It's just whatever's out
Yeah.
there. Obviously, anybody who authored biased content is just going to consume that. And actually reminds me, let me talk to you about a Microsoft example in a second. But that there's a cutoff period for that training. So ChatGPT 4.5 that just came out, its cutoff point I think was last June. So it doesn't have the most recent data. So then it supplements actually going out and doing the internet searching on
Yeah.
your behalf, and then amalgamating that information to give you an answer. So it's really great. It's equivalent of doing a search, going out and visiting the top 20 results on Google and coming back. Here's where I just put a caveat on what you're saying. In theory, it's unbiased. It's not being influenced by paid advertising, but who's to say it's they're at the end of the day, they're still using Google to do the search.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So it may still be influenced by the Google results. But to your point, yes, it's not as in your face as the Google ads are, or prioritizing those top results from Google.
Well, it's interesting because a buddy of mine did an AI search on my business, and we're a startup, and we're doing a thing in a way that people haven't done it before. So there's not a lot of data out there on us, and if you put that into a Google search, we're nowhere. We do not come up. He went and asked AI about us, and it delivered articles that I've written recently to him. So that's
Yeah.
one of the things that made me realize, that it's like, are we, are we even using it now to market? Like, I'm thinking about it, it's like I've got to get as much into these LLMs about my business as I can, because as someone's out there asking a question about solving a business problem, I'm not fighting against the monsters who are out paying me for clicks. At least it doesn't feel that way.
So to your point regarding so the traditional SEO, search engine optimization, and all the strategies and things like that, I'm not an SEO expert, but to get better hits on LLMs, it's going to be a lot more recent information on news or recently posted content that's going to have a higher impact on influencing the result in the LLM.
Yeah, yeah, without a doubt. So I'm really glad. I feel like we could go on forever. We may have to have another call, but or another episode. But I would really strongly encourage. I'm really glad you leaned into this human side. I think some of the business stuff people get at that point, but there's again, we're all under a lot of stress, and I look at closed mode as a place for. I've met a lot of really nice, really smart people, including you, who are really generous with time and ideas. And this is a place for people to go and say, "Hey, I'm wrestling with forecasting, or I'm wrestling with what methodology should I choose?" Shoot, go there. There's stuff on it. And this, I feel like, is a big one. Is the human side of the toll it takes on those of us who do this job. That there's a support function there for us.
And you enlighten me as well, Brian, which is also like the more you use it, the more time you put into it, the more it knows you, and the more it can provide better guidance back to you as well.
Yeah, yeah.
I
No,
just a quick another example for you. A friend of mine, he curses like a sailor, and so he actually curses to ChatGPT, and and he's just it's almost like a friend. Well, guess what? It started cursing back to him.
Yeah. So. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Like I said, there's a bunch of people listening to this that do not want to hear Buddhist mantras in the morning. They don't, but it knows that I do, right? So that's and to shut me up in the middle of a rant and go, stop and breathe, you knucklehead, very politely. But and I do love the fact that I thought it was just sucking up to me, and it's just like, no, I'll kick your butt if I need to. But yeah. Yep.
But to your point on that, I think to the audience on that, to your point, it is a pleaser. So
Yeah.
if you want it to push back, make sure you tell it to,
Yes.
and say that you're open to it and you want it to do that, because that's an important part of it as well.
I love that quote. I'm not here to please you. I'm here to serve you. And sometimes that means being a mirror. And that is what it told me. It said, you just told me what you want. You want truth, not comfort. So I think you bring up yeah. I mean, I think there's a little, just like you don't search GPT the way you'd search, Google, right? Your prompts are different. And I think you bring up a good point that I just learned from too. It's like the more I think you let it know who you are and what you want back, and say I want pushback, it will remember that, and it will push back. So it is anyway. Huge fan. It's out there, available for all of us to help us. It's back to that peak performance thing. I think whether you're a leader or a rep or an SE, this is some peak performance stuff, and you can say whatever embarrassing things you want to it, and it's not going to judge you.
Yep, yep. And then maybe in closing here, the value of an employee nowadays is not what they know. So it's not what university they went to. It's not how many books they studied. It's not how many courses they went to. It's not what you know. It's knowing what to ask. And that's, I mean, to a certain extent, that's always been true. I mean, from a lawyer, like, where do I go to find the right case or law or whatever? But really, that's the power of these systems now. And it sounds like, Brian, you've learned what to ask the system, how to talk to it, how to integrate, how to chat with it. And it's people who are still at that stage of thinking it's just another Google search engine.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we've even done the same with, as we're training it to respond reactively to sales reps' questions about their deal. Do not come back to me with the same old crap. And when I say, how do I get in front of, the economic buying influence? And it's going to give you this stuff that you already know. But and most people, I think, probably know this. But if you push it to say, give me some creative ideas, I got 13 ideas out of the box ideas for getting in front of a buying influence that I had never thought of before. And I've been doing this 35 years. So yeah, I think you're right. How you drive it's really important. And I know I certainly enjoyed this, and I hope other people listen and find some goodness out of it, because I learned a lot working with you today, and I really appreciate it.
That's been fun. Yeah, same here. Thanks, Brian.